Let me begin by asking you a question. Would it be of interest to you if the next 12 months of income were better than the last 12 months of your income? How about if it were a lot better? Okay, that's what I thought. So you're in the right place, and thank you for being here because for the next little bit, I'm going to show you 7, maybe even 8 secrets as to how to boost your income over the next 12 months massively, because the next 12 months are not going to be anything like the last 12. And I want to make sure that you're in the right place at the right time, fully prepared for it. So first of all, thank you for coming to the presentation. And thank you for being at the Cash Flow Wealth Summit. Here's the one thing that I know about you if you're at this summit right now, and that is you have something inside that wants to get better. You're an entrepreneur, an owner, a parent, or a business manager out there that is looking to get better. Perhaps you're an investor that's attempting to move the dial, raise more capital. All those desires are part of a person that drives for something a little bit more than the rest. You know, there's 7 billion people out there on the planet right now, but only you are watching this right now. So thank you for that. I'm going to do my best over the next few moments to give you some very practical tools to be able to boost your income, be able to raise more capital, build outrageous teams, and be able to generate the income that you want for yourself over the next 12 months. But before I do that, I really want to thank the amazing team at the Cash Flow Wealth Summit and Patrick Donahoe for all the amazing work they've gone to put this together. No easy task. And I'm sure of all the other speakers, I hope you're getting a lot of value, taking a lot of great notes, but most importantly, that you're going to take massive action on at least one thing that I'm going to say today and one thing that each of us have imparted to you. The only reason we're on this side of the equation and you're on that side is probably because collectively we've made more mistakes, screwed up more times than most of you have. But that's the life of an entrepreneur. Some people say, well, I want to be in business for myself. But you know what? Most people fail. They fail not because they don't have a great idea. They fail not because they don't have a lot of passion and energy. They fail because of the components I'm about to show you right now that they have not taken the time or nobody told them they needed to learn how to master, or they thought they were already good at it and come to find out that they were not so good at that. So we're going to get into that in a big way. By the end of this program, you're going to learn how to recruit a great team, be able to get everybody on your team to sell, be able to generate a lot more income, and to be able to overcome the #1 public enemy that's probably blocking your income right now. And I'm not going to tell you what that is until I get to it. And plus, I got a free gift for you at the end. So make sure you're here because that gift could be pivotal in your entire career. So again, thank you for being here. And thank you, Patrick, for having me on this program. So a little bit about how I got to this. Most of you know me. I'm Blair Singer, Rich Dad Advisor to Robert Kiyosaki, author of 3 best-selling books, Team Code of Honor, Sales Dogs, and Little Voice Mastery, How to Win the War Between Your Ears in 30 seconds or less. And I've traveled around the world for the last 25-plus years working with thousands of organizations, helping them to increase sales and productivity anywhere from 15 to 85% in a matter of weeks sometimes, but usually months. And my goal here is in the very short time we're together is to give you the best of the best of the best so you can make it happen in an even shorter period of time. Deal? Good. Awesome. So a little bit of background for those of you that don't know me. I'm originally from a place called Ohio. Don't know if there's any of you watching from Ohio. How many from Ohio? Okay, good. So I'm from Ohio, and Ohio was not a great place, not a terrible place, but a fairly boring place, and the weather was terrible. So when I graduated from university, I made a very important decision in my life to leave Ohio and move as far away from there as I could to Hawaii. Now, I know you know where that is, and Hawaii is a wonderful place to live, but a terrible place to live if you have no money and if you're broke. And it's there where I really started my entrepreneurial career. I actually started by getting a job in sales because I had no money. I worked for a company by the name of the Burroughs Corporation. You may not know them now, but they're now called Unisys. And we had to sell desktop calculators and mini computers, and back in the day when 2 megabytes was a lot of memory, okay? So I started there, and I was doing okay, not really well. The only reason I got that job is because I realized that the number one skill, if I'm going to have my own business, or if I'm going to be a great investor, or if I'm going to raise capital, your number one skill is you must know how to sell. That's right. Why? Because sales equals income. You may have a great product or service, great idea, great investment property, whatever it is, but if you can't sell the idea and sell the vision and sell the cash flow, nobody's going to show up. I don't care how passionate you are about it. As a matter of fact, you may bore people to tears and become a pest if you don't know how to do this. So I realized that I had zero selling skills. As a matter of fact, my first sales position, I almost got fired from my first sales position. I was so bad. I was given 6 weeks to sell $10,000 worth of desktop calculators door to door. And about 2 weeks into it, my sales manager called me in. He goes, "Hey, Singer, you know you're supposed to be selling these things." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "We've been watching you. And in your case, we're going to make an exception." And I'm thinking, obviously they see I'm management material. I was delusional, obviously, at the time. He said, "You haven't been doing anything. If you don't sell something in the next 48 hours, you're fired." And it was at that point that I realized that something in my life had to change. Now, the reason I tell this story is that all of you sitting there as entrepreneurs or hope to be entrepreneurs or business owners, managers, directors of teams, I know you know what I'm talking about. You know what you're supposed to be doing, but sometimes you just don't do it. For example, would you like to be in better physical shape? Sure, of course you do. But how many do you realize that lying in bed and visualizing yourself doing that's not going to work, right? But what's stopping you from going to the gym? What's stopping you from eating properly? The same thing that's stopping you from generating a lot of income. So I had to get hit up by the side of the head, almost get fired from my first real paying job to get it together to figure out what I needed to do next, which was the next day went out and made 68 cold calls in one day and sold nothing, but accomplished the most important sale of all. Most important sale of all is not selling to a customer, not raising capital. It's it's selling yourself to yourself, winning the war between your ears. Let me ask you, have you ever argued with yourself over a good idea? Like, "I really need to go to the gym today." "No, I'm too tired." "Come on, get out of bed." You know the argument I'm talking about? "I need to make another sales call." "But what if they don't like me? Blah, 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 blah." And so my experience is that's the secret enemy that's blocking your income. We're going to get into that in a little bit here and how to get rid of that once and for all. So anyway, I got my job at Burroughs, tried to learn how to sell. The reason is because I really knew that was my number one skill if I'm going to ultimately build a business here, B for business. So I met a few friends in Honolulu. I was a sailor, raced sailboats, raced Prindle catamarans, as a matter of fact. And a new friend of mine convinced me to part with the last $10,000 I had to invest in his surf shop in Waikiki. Bad investment, but it changed my life. We made no money in that little surf shop, but it was in that little surf shop in Waikiki that I learned the beginning lessons of how to be a successful entrepreneur. Like I said, number one is you got to learn how to sell. So I'm working in the surf shop one day in the afternoon, and because I told my boss I was making sales calls for Burroughs. I would make sales calls just to keep my quota, and then I would go work in the surf shop. Well, one day, the 6'3" Japanese guy walks into my surf shop trying to get me to buy these silly Velcro nylon wallets and T-shirts. Now, those of you that have read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you'll know this was 1982, that was Robert Kiyosaki. And I'm sure you all know who he is. And he was just starting his first entrepreneurial adventure. I was starting mine. We met, and I said to him, I said, these guys are surfers. They have no money. What would they need a wallet for? Why should I buy your wallets? That was my objection to him. Now, here's how he handled the objection. He started yelling at me. I'm going, it's a pretty interesting sales approach. Yell at your customer until they buy. And it actually worked. I bought them. We didn't sell very many, but that little interaction set me on a whole new course in my life. And the course looked a little bit like this. See, at Burroughs, they would give us what I call business development training. Business development. They teach us about the product, how to prospect a little bit, how to close a deal, those kinds of things. And that was all good. And, you know, if this was me down here, then what happened is my numbers, every time I got a little bit of training, keyword training, you're here for training. By the way, most people don't believe in training. They think training's good if they got time. If you don't have time, that's when you should be training. When times are tough, you should train. When times are good, you should train. I'm a big believer in training. Okay, so I would get a little bit better. But Robert Kiyosaki said to me that day, he goes, look, not that day, but we became great friends. And a few weeks later, he said, hey, look, Blair, there's a personal development program coming to town. You really should check it out. I go, I'm not into personal development programs. I'm not into that kind of stuff. He says, look, I had gone through a very painful divorce a few years earlier. He says, look, it'll help you with the business. It'll help you with your relationships. I go, I don't need that. I don't believe in that stuff. Blah, blah. I mean, very closed-minded, very skeptical. He goes, look, just check it out. So I did. And this was a 3.5-day program. And it was very little about money, very little about business, nothing about sales at all. And all I know is I came to the stunning realization somewhere in the middle of that program that there was one thing in common between the money I'd made, the money I'd lost, the things that had worked, the relationships that had worked and not. And the one thing in common was, guess what? What do you think? Yeah, me. Now, you're probably going, no kidding, you idiot. But for me, that was a major revelation that somehow something over here was creating all that over here. And no amount of technical training and education was helping me get to where I wanted to go, what my dreams are of financial freedom and becoming a global citizen and traveling and having the wealth beyond my dreams at the time. There was something else. Now, I got no answers at that program, but here's what happened. Check this out. Is that after that program, going back to my Burroughs job, you know, selling my computers and all that stuff, all I know is for the next 2 months, my numbers shot through the roof. I was on fire. I became #1 in sales within 18 months with the Burroughs Corporation. I was on the president's list. My business was doing great. I went back to Robert. I go, are there any more of those programs I can go to? That really worked because I realized that what most people don't get is they're either looking for more technical information to get better, or they're looking to navigate the metaphysical universe of the world to get better. Now, I'm going to tell you something that you must have both. That's why this Cash Flow and Wealth Summit is so critical, because you're getting a combination of both. Most of the great speakers that you're viewing here understand that it requires both. So that's what's required here. And just keep in mind that if you're struggling from cash flow right now, or it's not coming as quickly as you'd like, and you've tried just about everything you can think of, the final frontier is between your right ear and your left ear. It's not about any more technical information. It could give you books and books and books. Look, getting in great physical shape is pretty easy, right? Get some exercise, eat well, don't put nasty things in your body. Yes? Well, if it's so friggin' simple, how come most people are overweight, out of shape? You understand what I'm saying? If selling is pretty easy, isn't it? Isn't it? Find out what people want and give it to them. That can't be that difficult. But if that's the case, then how come you and your team aren't killing it? So there's something else going on, and I would guarantee you it's between your right ear and your left ear. When I realized that and started focusing on that, on both, then is when the gates of income and wealth began flowing in. So that's why you're in the right place at the right time doing the right thing. But remember, equal quantities of both, not one or the other. Some of you are heavily weighted on one, some on the other. I'm going to tell you, as an entrepreneur, it is a personal development journey, not a business development journey. It's a test every day of who you are. Whether you have the guts, whether you have the strength, whether you have the resiliency to make one mistake after another and keep rebounding back and getting stronger. That's entrepreneurship. Most people think of fancy cars and living on the beach and all that stuff, and that you can have some of that if you're good, But that's not how you get there. The way you get there is through mistake after mistake after mistake. And the truth of it is, the way we grow up in school, the way we are taught in our school system, we are taught that mistakes are bad and we're punished for them, so we avoid them. As an entrepreneur, you know you embrace it, make your mistake quickly, and move on. That's why sales is not just about generating income. The toughest sale is between your right ear and your left ear, convincing yourself to keep going and keep making mistakes, okay? So number one skill is you got to learn how to sell. And by the way, sales is not just about generating income, monetary income. It's about generating resources, raising capital. You know, the fact of the matter is 95% of most businesses will fail in 3 years, as I said, not because they don't have a good idea. It's because they run out of money, because they can't raise the capital. They're afraid to go to investors, or investors aren't buying your idea. Or you can't find people out there that have money that want to exchange it for your product or service, and you don't have a convincing argument to help them. So we're going to work on that a little bit. The other thing about selling, the reason selling is number one, if selling is number one and sales equals income, the second skill is you must learn how to recruit and build a championship team. Now, how does that work? Well, the way that that works is because you got to be able to sell somebody that wants to be on your team. If you can't sell them on the vision of your organization, sell them on the mission, sell them what's in it for them, why would they want to be on your team? Now, some of you have a little voice in your head that may be saying, but I don't have enough money to do that. How am I going to? Look, if you're convincing enough, if you are passionate enough about your mission, people will pay you to be on your team. Think of franchising. Franchise is a situation where a person actually pays the franchisor to be part of the team. Now, that's a little bit different than what you're thinking, yes? So, again, sales is number one because with the ability to sell, you can recruit and build a great team. The third component is this, is you must also learn how to teach. That's right. Be able to teach other people on your team how to sell. I'll say it again. You got to learn how to teach other people on your team how to sell. Now, most people don't talk about this, but I'm going to tell you that for Robert, myself, the Rich Dad Advisors, a lot of our friends, Harv Ecker, you know, is a very dear friend of mine as well, is that what we all know is the secret to our success is that we spent a lot of time learning how to do this to teach other people on our team how to sell, how to be great team players, how to be successful, how to be more efficient, how to have the life and dreams that they want. That make sense? Okay? So, again, as an entrepreneur, 3 critical skills. Number 1, got to learn how to sell. Number 2, learn how to recruit a great team. Sales equals income. A team, massive and passive income requires a team. And as an entrepreneur, you got to be a leader, but you got to be a teacher leader that can teach other people on your team how to sell. Now, why? Why would you need to do that? Well, where else are they going to learn it? They're going to learn how to sell in school? No. Are they going to learn that it's okay to make mistakes and to be entrepreneurial and to be resourceful and creative in school? No, they're taught to be good, do as they're told, don't make mistakes, be risk averse. Now, that's not going to help you if you're trying to build a sales team, if you're trying to raise capital. Okay, so you have to become the teacher. Many years ago, after Robert and I left Hawaii, I started a little trucking business in Southern California. In the first 9 months, lost $750,000 US. Now, back in those days, that was a lot of money, back in mid-'80s. And I'll tell you what, I was going to close the company. But my team came back and said, you can't close the company. And I'm going to tell you why here in a minute, which is one of the final components of building. By the way, what I'm showing you are the business development tools you need. And by the way, if you want some resources, I recommend go to our virtual booth here at the Cash Flow Wealth Summit. Go to the virtual booth, and there's all kinds of freebies there for you. There's some great articles on how to maximize your sales, how to recruit a great team. There's also a couple of diagnostics. They'll teach you, they're all free. Check it out. Find out what your natural selling style is. Some of you that's the topic of this book here, one of the best-selling Rich Dad Advisor book called Sales Dogs. You'll learn what breed of sales dog you are, whether you're the raging pit bull, the the charming poodle, the serve everybody retriever, or the data freak chihuahua, but you'll find that you have a unique selling style. And when you play to your strength and when you're truly 100% authentic in you, people will buy you. Don't try to be somebody that you're not, because that's catastrophic. So again, go to the virtual booth. There's a free diagnostic. You can link to the diagnostic. You can figure out what kind of a sales dog you are and how to play. And we'll give you a whole bunch of stuff on how to play to your strength. Also, a little diagnostic to see whether your team is a great team, mediocre team, or whether you should just blow that team up and start all over again. So go to the virtual booth and check it out. The other thing I learned with my little trucking business and surf shop is that a good business needs to have great systems. I think Tom Wheelwright, if you go to Tom's presentation, he's going to talk about, he talks about systems. He's my system expert. He's my advisor, not only in tax and accounting, but in systems. Brilliant mind, but you've got to have cash flow management systems, accounting systems, marketing systems, referral systems, training systems. In your whole selling cycle is a system of systems. So the ability to understand how that works, there are millions of dollars sitting on the table that will teach you at some point. Millions of dollars sitting on the table, they're just waiting to be harvested. They're just being left there because you don't have a decent system, okay? The other thing that's required to build a strong business is you have to have a high level of this. Accountability, particularly an accountability to numbers. You need to know your numbers. I can't say this enough, that most entrepreneurs I work with, whether it's a $500,000 a year company, $1 million, $10 million, even $20 million, a lot of those entrepreneurs don't really know their numbers. They think they do, but they really don't. And a lot of the work we've done over the years is get people very clear on what they are. The minute you start measuring them properly and know how to connect the dots on those, you can create magic, absolutely create magic. But the biggest thing, and one of the most important business development tools I want to give you in this session, by the way, it's fairly difficult to squeeze 30 years of experience into about 40, 45 minutes here, is that if there's one business development tool that I want you to make sure that you have, it's this one. Remember I told you that my company was upside down $750,000, and I had about 35 people on staff that are mostly Samoan, Tongan, Mexican, African-American, all much bigger than me. And I basically went to them and said, we're upside down. And the way that happened is we gave our billing and our accounts receivable to a factoring company that was supposed to collect the money, which they did, but then they kind of disappeared with all of our money, which was a big problem because we had a lot of people to pay and I couldn't make payroll. And so I was going to shut the company down. But what happened is my team came back to me and said, I pulled them together. I said, we're going to have to shut it down. They go, you can't quit. Don't shut it down. I go, what do you mean you can't quit? We're out of money. It's over. Sayonara. Bye-bye. They go, no. And the reason they said no is because one thing we had created in the beginning of our business, when we first started it, was something that I had learned from one of my teachers, that every great team, every great business, every great religion, every great civilization, every great government, every great family, every great person for that matter, has one thing in common that makes them and keeps them great. And what it's called a code of honor. That's right, code of honor. Code of honor, which basically what a code of honor is simply a set of rules of how we operate as a team, how we work together. Think of the 10 Commandments. Have you heard of the 10 Commandments? Yes, good, awesome. So the 10 Commandments is a classic code of honor created over 2,000-3,000 years ago by a group that had just left one country, going to a new country. I'm not sure how the arrangement worked between Moses and God or whatever, but came together and created these 10 rules that are still to this day the backbone of our legal system and our sense of right and wrong around the world. So obviously that's a very clear code of honor, only 10 rules. but have persisted for a very long time. Now, I'm not going to say we're really good at abiding by those 10 commandments, but I'm using that as an example. So what I learned is that we needed to create one from our business. So in the beginning, we created rules. So when it came crisis time, my team came to me and they said, you can't quit. I go, why? I said, it says so in the rules. Rule number 1 in our code of honor said, never abandon a teammate in need. I go, we're in need right now. You can't quit. Number 2 rule, everybody on the team must sell. It says, you know how to sell. You teach us how to sell. We all agree we'll work a couple of weeks for free if we have to turn this thing around, but you can't quit. Now, let me tell you something. That was never taught to me in college, university, or in school. Nobody ever taught me how to deal with that situation. But over the many, many years of people that have come before you and I, civilizations that have come and gone before you and I, there are certain principles that hold true. One of them is right here. That every great family, every great team has to have a set of rules that holds them together. Now, the Marine Corps has a set of rules that are different from the Navy. The Navy has a different one that I use in my business. You have a different one for yours, maybe for your family. But all I know is, I will guarantee you this. If you do nothing else after this presentation, you go back, and by the way, if you want a little support on that, that was the second Rich Dad Advisor book that I created called Team Code of Honor. This is a manual that takes you and your team or your family step by step by step how to start with nothing, start with just your values, and then create your rules that support those values to create your code of honor. Because you know what? At the end of the day, in the absence of rules, people make up their own. It's not because they're good or bad people. I hear it once, I heard it 1,000 times. I've worked with hundreds of thousands of people in companies like Singapore Airlines, Morgan Stanley, IBM, L'Oreal, all over the world. They always say, can't find good people. Well, you know what? That's nonsense because most people are great. You're great. The people around you are great as long as you put them in a context or an environment that holds them together based upon a core set of values. My wife and I have a code of honor. We have a code in our household. We have a code with our boys, with our 2 young boys. So again, critical, critical, critical. And if you do nothing else, tonight, when you switch this off, sit down and create 3 or 4 rules of your own code of honor. What are 3 or 4 values and rules that you are unwilling to compromise in your life? Because you know what? In the absence of rules, you'll find when your emotion goes up, your intelligence goes down. And in that moment, you better have yourself a good set of rules. I always say that the Marine Corps has a code of honor. Why? Because when bullets are whizzing by your ears, emotion tends to run high and intelligence is low. You know what I'm saying? Look, have you ever said something when you were upset that 10 seconds later wished you had not said it? Of course you have. That's what I'm talking about. So you don't want to make bad decisions. That's why you have a code. I know that several years ago, my then 16-year-old son and I went to Mount Kilimanjaro to climb Kili together and to do community service for an amazing orphanage there in Tanzania in the town of Moshi. Well, on the first night on the mountain, he got very sick. He ate something, he was vomiting uncontrollably. It was terrible. I mean, all night he was up. The next morning, we had given him medication, and the team had to move on. And he was going slower and slower, getting weaker and weaker. He couldn't even hold water at some point. I remember we were at about 10,000 feet above the rainforest, above the cloud line, and he just leaning on his poles. I said, Ben, can you make it any further? He goes, Dad, I just want to go home. So I had to make a decision. Am I going to let the porters I could let the porters take him down into this third world country, Tanzania. Hopefully he'll find a clinic. Hopefully they'll find out what's wrong with him. I'll finish the climb, and I'll meet him 5 days later because I'm all about climbing mountains, right? Just like you. He's an entrepreneur. You're all about the mission. You're all about taking on the summit, whatever your summit is for you, right? And so what should I do? Should I go? Should I stay? And all this stuff. And it was about 45 seconds that I'm going through this, and all of a sudden, here was the thought. Hey, you idiot, speaking to myself, you wrote a book about this called Team Code of Honor. And I go, whoa, hold on a second. Because I remember our rule, our family rule, never abandon a teammate in need. Number 2, we start together, we finish together. I'll always have your back. And so it's like, okay, got it. I'll take him down. So I took him down the mountain. You know, he's in a little clinic. You know, I'm not even going to describe that. It was a horrible situation, but he had an IV in him for about 18 hours. He woke up the next morning. I'm laying next to him. He opens his eyes and he sees me, and he gets this big smile on his face, seeing me laying next to him. And at that point I go, right decision. Had I not had this, I might have made a catastrophically bad decision at 10,000 feet. Yeah, sure, he'd probably been okay. He understood everything would have worked out. But you know what? That mountain will be there forever. It's been there for a few 100,000 years. It'll be there for a few 100,000. But the relationship between myself and my son, priceless. The relationship between you and your family, priceless. The relationship between you and your entrepreneurial dream, priceless and momentary. Don't sacrifice it because of high emotion, low intelligence. Don't try to rely on good people to make it happen. You could take ordinary people, turn them into a championship team. I've done it around the world for countless organizations as well as my own. A team that would stand up and say, we'll work for free to keep this mission going. Do you have that in your business? Could you attract that in your business? I can tell you, you don't have to have charisma to do that, because it was not my charisma. It was something bigger, something called a code of honor. So again, I recommend as your assignment, create one. Start to create one, or at least talk to your partners about how to create one of those, a code of honor. Okay? Now, all this is good. Let me go back to here for a second. All this is good, but there's one major flaw. This is what we call business development here. But there's one major flaw in this whole formula that I've learned over all these years. You know what it is? I think some of you, I think you're guessing. Yeah? Okay, here it is. The problem is right here. This is your brain. Now, it's not your brain on drugs or anything like that, but this is your brain. Now, what percentage of your brain do you consciously use? Do you know? Okay, good. I'll take that, about 10%. So 10%. So if this is the conscious part of your brain, what part is this? Right, subconscious. This is the subconscious part of your brain, subconscious, right? And what we know about that, and what a lot of the other speakers have told you, is that, which is correct, is we have a lot of memories, a lot of beliefs, a lot of old scripting going on, that's gone on in here from every time, from the first time we could remember as a toddler growing up. Got it? Good. So no big deal, because we don't think about those things all day long. Until such time as I'm at 10,000 feet and I've got a problem, or I've got a problem with a partner in my business, or somebody hits me with an objection, or I need to go out and raise capital, or. And what happens then, all of a sudden, stuff comes out of here. For example, if you, let's just say, I would ask you this question. Have you ever loaned money to somebody who didn't pay you back? Of course, we all have. Don't think about that, but it's happened, right? So let's just say you and I are working together and everything's going great. We've been working together for a couple of years. I don't know your background, but I go up to you and I say, excuse me, everything's going really well, but I'm a little short on cash. If you could loan me about $50,000, $60,000 for this deal I'm trying to do, I'd be happy to pay you back as soon as I can. Now, what are you thinking right now? What do you think? You're going, no way. And immediately our relationship changes, doesn't it? You don't trust me as much. You're kind of questioning. Maybe you don't want to hang around me. And here's the deal. It has nothing to do with me. It has something to do with something that got triggered out of your subconscious that I call your little voice. You know the little voice I'm talking about? That's right. It's the one that just went, what little voice? I don't have a little voice. That's the one I'm talking about. Mine sounds like my mother. I don't know what yours sounds like. Okay? And we all have them. And we all have probably, if I were to guess, ask you, you probably have at least 6 of them up there. You have a stubborn one. You have a procrastinating one. You have a fearful one. You have an arrogant one. You go right down the list. You got a low confidence. You got a high confidence. All of those little voices are all running amok up there. And the problem is if you're not familiar with how to handle that, then I don't care how well planned you are in this area. You may have the best team, great sales program, high level accountability, great systems, but the minute this little voice shows up, the negative little voice is like shooting a broadside right into the middle of the ship. Ba-woom! Right? I always tell people I work with large organizations that has a massive marketing plan, spend millions of dollars on marketing and another set of millions of dollars on marketing systems and CRM selling systems and all of this stuff. And I'm going, there's only one problem. Can I raise my hand here, please? They go, what? I said, all this is all predicated on that one guy in Topeka, Kansas, getting out of bed in the morning and not having his extra cup of coffee and picking up the phone and making a frickin' sales call. It all works if he makes 10 calls a day. But if he's not doing that, then all of your money is wasted. And everybody just sits there in silence. You know why? Because they know I'm right. Now, as an entrepreneur, you probably, if you're watching this right now, you don't have, hundreds of people around the country as your sales team. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But I'm going to tell you this, that little voice is either making you money or it's building a gigantic Hoover Dam block on a reservoir of wealth that could be flowing to you. Trust me on that. And I learned over the years that when I started working on this is when the money started flowing in. I told you that story earlier. Make sense? So again, it's about business development and personal development. Learning how to manage this. As a matter of fact, I got for those of you as a thank you for being on this call, for being at this presentation. I have a little gift for you. Would you like to see what the gift is? Okay, good. This is the gift. This is the gift. When I talked to the sponsors of this program, what's the one thing that I could give you that would make the biggest difference? And I came up with this. And what this is a Little Voice Mastery CD. So if you go back to the virtual site and you click for your free gift on the website, you're going to get one of these. This is my $500,000 CD. Now, it doesn't cost you $500,000. Actually, it retails for about $50, but you're going to get it for free. And the reason is this, reason $500,000 is because that's what I've spent on personal development training and coaching for me to handle this over the years. For just in the last 10 years, at least $500,000. And so on here are 20 little voice techniques that are designed to handle things like procrastination, to handle when you have some fears, to have doubts, what to do right after you make a mistake, just what to do just before a presentation, just what to do right after a presentation. I don't know if you remember Barbara Streisand. She used to have stage fright, terrible stage fright. And the person who trained her trained me in a technique to overcome that fear. The same technique that Michael Jordan actually used to take the last shot of a game, as described in the book Sacred Hoops. That process is in here, and I take you right through it. People have said this is like having your own personal development coach handy anytime you want it. Now, you're not going to get a CD, but you're going to get a free, you click for your free gift, and we're going to give you the one-time only download of this so you can listen to it anytime you want. And trust me, when you're going into your next sales call, when you're going to raise capital from your next investor, or you've got an issue with a contractor, or whatever it is going on for you, you got to face a family situation, you're going to want to pull one of these 20 techniques that's appropriate for that situation and deal with it. So as a thank you from me to you, this is for you. So again, go to the virtual site, make sure you click on your free gift, and we'll get you the Little Voice CD. Companies like L'Oreal, companies like Singapore Airlines, companies like Dunkin' Brands. These are all brands that have used this religiously to help create massive income and build championship teams. So that's a free gift for you, okay? All right? So at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, I draw this one more flip chart to leave you with. And then I'm going to take some questions if any of you have some. And that's this. I love this. This is a cup, a mug, whatever you want to call it. And in a cup or a mug, you would put some liquid, some coffee, some hot chocolate, some water, whatever the case might be. And that stuff is what we call the content of the cup, okay? So in looking at your business, it's the same thing. So what would be the content of your business? Good. Okay, things like people. Good. You'd have staff. Excellent. And customers. What else? Good. Hopefully lots of money. Good. Products, services, systems, all that. Okay, and much, much more. So that's the content. Now, let me ask you something. If, in fact, this cup that all of our business is sitting in, all our content, develops a crack in it, what happens to the content? That's right. It leaks out. Now, in business, what's that called? Right, failure or bankruptcy. In a marriage, what's that called? I bet you knew the answer to that one really quickly, right? So the point here is all the best content in the world, the products, the people, all of that is only as good as this container that it sits in, which we call the context or the environment, if that's what you want to, if that makes more sense to you, the environment. So what comprises that? Well, I already told you, one of the biggest pieces is your code of honor, your rules, your mission, why you're doing what you're doing. Because you know what? You know, you're going to have bad days. If you haven't had one or two already, you're going to have bad days in your business, and you better have a good reason why you're there. Otherwise, you will quit, and you'll give up on your dream, and then later you're going to be kicking yourself, okay? Don't retreat. Don't give up, okay? Take the lessons that are here. Remember, sales, business is probably the best personal development program on the planet. Why? Because every day you get paid to learn more. You get paid to make mistakes. You get paid to get bigger, okay? Because at the end of the day, if this is you, hopefully what you are looking for is a bigger, better you over here. Yes? Yes? Good. I think most people feel that way. I will tell you that in working with hundreds of thousands of people over the last 25 years, most people have no idea how big they are. The distance between you and where you want to be is not very far. It could be just one of these components. It could be code of honor, could be the only difference. I will tell you that as you're sitting here, there are people around you right now that are blocking your vision. They are. They're good people. They're well-intended, but they're blocking your vision. Part of your code should be to surround yourself only with positive people that support what it is you want to do. Not that they won't give you feedback. They need to give you hard feedback. I mean, people ask me what it's like to hang around with Kiyosaki, Tom Wheelwright, Andy Tanner, all the advisors. I can tell you, sometimes it's a pain in the butt. But I trust them with my life. I trust them with my money. I trust them with my family. Why? Because I can trust they're going to be honest with me all the time. So, what's most important as you leave this presentation is to know that the environment that you create, the context, is always more important than the content. That's right. So how do you do that? Create an environment that supports these people to be their best. Start with a code of honor. Make sure you're clear on the mission. Make sure people are there for the right reasons. Don't compromise yourself. I will tell you that one of the keys of being the reason most businesses don't grow more than about 2 or 3 people is because they can't manage people. But if you look at the biggest business in the world, the wealthiest people on the planet, whether you're an infopreneur, whether you're a mediapreneur, whether you have a brick and mortar business, whatever it is, ultimately, you've got to be able to deal with people, and you've got to create a context that under fire will protect you. Remember my story on Kilimanjaro. Remember my story about my little trucking business. These are successes that were bigger than me because I had created a context. When I work with these big companies, I'm not an expert in hair care. I work with L'Oreal. I'm not an expert in making cookies, but I work with Mrs. Fields cookies. I mean, I'm not an expert in the airline business. I work with Singapore Airlines. But what I can tell them is what they understand is as a leader, as a parent, you have to create an environment or a context that makes this work. If not, I don't care how good this is, if it's full of cracks, it will fail. So again, I encourage you, create your own code, go to the website, go to our virtual site, take the tests, the free diagnostics. We'll send you a whole bunch of free information how to get started on your code of honor. But most of all, I want to make sure you get your free Little Voice CD because that's going to make the biggest difference, and it will make a difference tomorrow if you listen to it today. So having said all that, I'll take a few questions from the group on what we covered. Okay, that's a great question. So the question is, two-part question is, how often do I need to practice little voice techniques, and can I absolutely eliminate the little voice altogether? Well, I will tell you, first of all, you're never going to eliminate the little voice. I mean, little voice is actually there to protect you in many ways. That's why we call it little voice mastery. The book itself, right here, little voice mastery, is to master the little voice, not to have it master you. In other words, when your emotion runs high, your intelligence goes low. And what happens is those little voices, all the negative programming, kick in and take over. For some people, quitting or running away is their first option. That should never be your first option. Should never be your first option. But sometimes, if in the face of somebody with a gun pointed to your head, maybe that should be your first option. So again, you learn to master it. You want that little voice to help you in the times when you need it, but you don't want it to be hurting you particularly when you're trying to expand. The other question was about practicing. Here's the advantage of the CD. The advantage of the CD is just listen to it. Listen to it a few times. Each track, I step you through the process. You can do it yourself. The good news about these is that once you learn it, it only takes about 10 to 30 seconds to apply it. It's not like you got to go through this whole writing process and a memorization process. They're really pretty simple. It's just a way of looking at it. I did my best to take all my hours and hundreds of thousands of dollars of personal development training and condense it into some simple techniques. I wish I could tell you they're all mine. They're not. They're from some of my great teachers, but with their permission. So again, the more you listen to this CD, the more calm you will become, the more calm in the eye of the storm you'll become, and you'll be able to confront much bigger problems with much greater ease. Now, if that's of desire to you, I would recommend that you go get your free gift to do that, because at the end of the day, I always ask people, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a lot of money? Would you rather have peace of mind? And you know what? People always say, well, peace of mind, because the money is going to get me the peace of mind. So why don't you just start with the peace of mind, then you'll open the doors for more money. That's really how it works. So that was a great question. Thank you for that question. Are there any other ones? So the question is, I want to teach, but I don't know how to do that. How do I get started? Well, that's a great question. I think the first thing I would say is, when you think of if I said to you, teacher, and I did a free word association on the word teacher, I'd ask you what kind of images come up. And you're going to get classroom, school, woman in front of the room, me at a little desk, apple on the desk, I don't know, whatever. Okay, so first of all, erase the image of teaching from what you formerly have learned in school or in the academic world, and think of mentor. Think of master apprentice. Think of it in those kinds of terms. So in other words, the greatest teachers, some of the greatest leaders in the entire planet throughout human history have been great leaders, teacher leaders. You think of people like Martin Luther King. Think of people like Mother Teresa, Jesus Christ. These were people that were great leaders, but they also taught us something. They made us better, not just because of their inspiration, but they taught us lessons along the way. Now, my question to you is, have you ever made a mistake or two? Of course you have. So I'll tell you, if you made a mistake or two in your life, you're qualified. You're a teacher. Why? Because as a teacher, all you're doing is passing on your learning from your learning experiences on to other people. I tell people one of the things that I love to do besides sales and team personal development is that we are grooming a tribe of some of the greatest teachers and facilitators on the planet to facilitate our mission, which is to improve the quality of life for everybody through transformation of the marketplace. And I've just been honored to be in the presence of some people with amazing technology, but I give them a teaching methodology. So one of the ways to learn to teach, come to some of our courses, our Train the Trainer program or our Master Facilitator program. I'll teach you how to do that formally. But at the end of the day, if you just think of passing your learning experiences on to somebody else, taking somebody under your wing, even if you haven't made the millions of dollars that you want to make yet, even if you haven't been as successful as you think you should be yet, you've still learned a lot along the way. You can certainly help somebody else from making those same mistakes. Start there. If you've got a business, this would be my recommendation. You have weekly meetings, right? Right? Just say yes. Lie to me. Say, of course I do. You have weekly meetings. Take 10 minutes and study something together. Take Sales Dogs, Little Voice Mastery, Team Code of Honor. Take any book. Take a chapter. Run copies of it. Give it to your staff. Give it to your team. And once a month, discuss a chapter. Discuss what you learn. Get lessons together and just facilitate the learning. It doesn't have to be your opinion. You just pull information, pull the learning from them. And you will find that most people love to learn. They don't like to be taught so much, but they love to learn. So first of all, erase the idea of being a teacher. Think of being a mentor. And I will also say this, if you don't have a mentor, if you don't have a coach, get one. One thing I know about all successful athletes, actors, actresses, millionaires, successful entrepreneurs, they all have coaches. I have at least 3 of my own currently that I work with. I work physically, mentally, emotionally. So make sure you have one and learn how they teach and teach their lessons on to others. Great question. Be a teacher. Any others? So what happens when a team member doesn't want to play by the rules? Okay, so I get this question a lot. Let me qualify. A lot of times when I get the question, I would ask you, first of all, are they familiar with the rules, and have you really gone over the rules and explained them? And in most cases, people will tell me, well, not really. I said, are your rules in writing? Is your code of honor in writing? Well, people understand. No, they don't understand. It needs to be in writing, and before when you bring a person into your organization, the first thing you do is go through the rules. When our little trucking business, we had a rule that said never abandon a teammate in need. And so even if we were hiring a warehouse person, our supervisor would go through these rules with them and explain what they meant. In other words, that rule meant, or they would give an example. On Friday night, freight traffic was really heavy. The day shift had already gone home, but the night shift was buried in traffic. So they called the day shift to come back in again to work with them to do the paperwork while they loaded the trucks to get them all out on time. And they said that's an example of never abandoning a teammate in need. And then the candidate, and by the way, these were just for minimum wage jobs. The candidate would say, well, do you pay double time for that if I have to come back in? Or I don't think I can do that because I can't work that many hours in a day. And then our guys would say, well, that's fine, but you probably won't like it here because we don't pay double time, and that's how we do things. And we ended up in an industry that had easily over 100% employee turnover per year. We had less than 20%. And so the point here is this, it's called management by agreement. So my first question to you is, did they agree to the rules? Did they understand them? They don't necessarily need to have been a part of creating them. That's for you and your senior team or you as the founder, or you can do it with your whole team. It depends on your business. But did they agree to them? Did they understand it? Once you have agreement, then you can enforce. At that point, if you repeatedly called them on breaches of the code and they don't want to and they just refuse to do it, then you have a choice. And the choice really is theirs. Do you want to work here, you got to play by these rules. If you want to play by your own rules, that's fine. Find another organization where they play by your rules. Ours aren't necessarily the best, but they work for us and for the people that are here. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. You need to go someplace else. So you just need to let them go. Okay? Good? Any other questions? One more? Okay, so how do you find businesses and people to sell to? We do a 2.5-day sales explosion program where I talk about there's 10 ways to generate leads. 10 ways. And I'm not going to go into them right now. But if you go do your Sales Dogs diagnostic, what we'll do is we'll send you a free report that will tell you some excellent ways based on your personality type to go find additional leads. Because, for example, a poodle very much love to be on stage. They like to do presentations and public speaking, and those kinds of things are great ways to generate leads if that's the type of person you are. If you're not, maybe you're a pit bull, cold calling works for you. Maybe referral system. There's a lot of ways of doing it. There's 10 ways, only one of which actually costs any money. The rest of them are perfectly free, but it's most important that you find the process that works for you personally. That's criteria 1. Criteria 2, make sure that your product and service matches your audience. Don't try to be selling Ferraris to people that are on minimum wage income. I mean, that's clearly not going to work. And don't be trying to sell Ferraris to even rich women that have to cart carloads of soccer kids around, because that's not a match right there, okay? So the product and service have to match the audience and have to match the price point. Those 3 criteria, actually 4 criteria: your personality, audience, price point. Yeah, service, price point, audience, and your personality. So those all have to match. And if you do, it's like a hot knife through butter. I mean, you don't even have to sell. People just come to buy. So how do you do that? A lot of trial and error. A lot of trial and error. Keep surveying. Here's a little assignment I'll give you who asked that question. Go back to your best 10 customers that you have up to this date, people that love you, and go take them to coffee, take them to lunch, whatever. Ask them why they bought from you. Ask them why they continue to work with you. What was it like before? What was it like after? 2 things will happen. You'll get a great testimonial, okay, that if you ask them for it, they'll give it to you. Number 2 is you will see a pattern of who these people are. You know, I took a look around, and this first book that I wrote, Sales Dogs, was designed to be given to sell to sales managers. Yeah, right here in the dedication it says, this book is dedicated to all the lonely sales managers throughout time who ever tried to teach their old dogs some new tricks. So, because I figured if sales managers had this book, they'd have a manual for being able to teach their teams how to be more successful and make more money. Happy days, right? Guess what? I totally missed the market. Why? First of all, because most sales managers don't buy books, and they're certainly not going to buy books for their teams, and they've got a very scripted way that they want to get things done, and they don't necessarily all believe that there's 5 different strategies for selling depending on your personality type. I know that you can make millions being true to yourself, and that you don't have to be a pit bull or a poodle or whatever to get it done. So what I found out is I surveyed the people that were buying the book. And lo and behold, over half of the people that had bought the book, when I went online, and people that had done our diagnostics, they were either network marketers, direct sellers, or very, very small entrepreneurs. Got it. Why? Because they know that they need to learn how to sell, and they know that there's no real training out there to really do it well, unless you have to pay a lot of money. So a book seemed good for them. And it was also part of the Rich Dad community. So it all seemed to work. So once I said, okay, so I'm going to direct my marketing effort to those guys at that price point, and boom, became a bestseller. So it's really not that difficult. You've got to be willing to test and make mistakes and listen to what the market tells you. It may tell you things that you don't want to hear, but you got to listen to it. Just because you're ready to sell doesn't mean they're ready to buy. Your goal, here it is. I'm just going to end with this. When it comes to sales, find out what people want and give it to them. The most powerful thing, and by the way, this is not just in your business. This is at home. Your husband, your wife, your kids, you know what they want, really deep inside what they really want in that moment. Just give it to them. That is probably the greatest gift you can give to another human being, and because it does 2 things. A, it makes them happy, but it heals that incessant want that's inside of all of us. The desire to be better, the desire to feel good, the desire to have peace of mind. Think about the last time you lost your keys, and you're raging around the house or office trying to look for your keys, and you're just going crazy. Your little voice is out of control, and you find them. How does that feel? Yeah! You feel awesome, right? Right? Why? Because you found what you want, something you really, really wanted in that moment. Be the person that can do that. Be the person that can get past your own little voice going, well, I know what they want, but when was the last time they did something for me? Don't be that person. Be the person that gives people what they want, and the world will give you more of anything that you want. So thank you for being in the presentation. Please go to the virtual booth, get all your free gifts and free diagnostics, and I look forward to seeing you very, very, very soon. Be awesome.